Chairman, because Dave made it happen. Not sure what the intent was there.
I so move it stays the same. Oh, we're not there yet, are we?
We're almost there. I'll give you a little time to think about it. So I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second.
Pat, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as you're looking at. I want to throw in before we start on the agenda how much I appreciate Crystal and Ryan and all the work that's gone into this process. I told somebody the other day, they asked me how many years I did this, and I said, well, I was superintendent for 25 years in 3 different districts. And the hard work that goes into this is amazing. And you'll never hear a lot of thank yous, but you will hear some complaints. But just from my perspective, I really want you to know how much we appreciate all you're doing. And if you read the information, even glaze over some of the information that Ryan and Crystal sent out, it really helps put in perspective what our position is and what we should be doing. So having said that, we need to have election of officers, and I think we need a chair and a vice chair. Yes, a chair and a vice chair for the budget committee. So it's open for elections.
Well, I'll say, I move that it stays the same. Both places, both categories.
I second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we maintain the current leadership as officers on the budget committee. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. I'm not sure, I probably should have asked this before we voted, but I think this is my 3rd year. Is that right, Crystal?
I think so, yes.
So
You're still good to go.
I'm still good to go. Okay, all right, we have that behind us. Now I'd like to just turn the time over to Ryan and Crystal for the budget message. And I think you have all of that in front of you, but the rest is up to them, so. You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Mr. Rumford, congratulations to you as well. And so I want to say welcome everybody, and thanks for coming as well. And so if you'll turn to the superintendent's 2024-25 budget message, I'd like to just kind of review that, and I will be reading it line by line, paraphrasing here and there, but I think there's some really good important things in here, just to kind of let not only you guys, but the public know where we got this money, I mean, the 10.2 and all of that, and so some other key features of that. And so I'm just going to read that, and it is a little more lengthy with 3 pages, but it's all important information. So, is everybody looking at this? Take some over there. Mr. Marketing, would you like a new clerk, sir? Yeah.
Doing all right, thanks. I didn't know it was that loud.
No, I saw it. I was like, I've done it many times before, sir. So,
You need steel or aluminum.
Thanks, Crystal. I'm slightly embarrassed now. It takes a lot to embarrass me.
yeah,
That's fine.
every time I do it, the ESDN enchiladas, I go to their thing and get the metal ones because I break it every single time. So,
Get my pocket knife out now.
perfect. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. So, dearness of school district community, I'm pleased to present the 2024-25 proposed school budget. As required by the Oregon budget law, this budget is balanced with the estimated expenditures and revenues. As we review the budget, you will see the significant resources designated to support and enhance our commitment to excellence in education. So you'll see that I've highlighted kind of certain sections here, just so as reference you can kind of put it there. So I just wanted to take some time to talk about the current climate, financial climate, and political climate in Oregon. The proposed 2024-25 budget reflects the state school fund, or SSF, of $10.2 billion as appropriated by the Oregon legislature for the 23 to 25 biennium. This funding level represents a 9.7 increase over the previous biennium. You guys should remember that from last year. It's also important to note that on an annual basis, the level of increased state funding makes it difficult to keep up with costs in our current inflationary environment. While inflation has cooled over the recent months, impacts on program costs are evident throughout our organization. Fortunately, the district is receiving additional revenue from the expansion of our virtual school program, currently serving students outside the districts in grades K through 8. The district has also recently settled a labor contract with the NISA Education Association, but remains in negotiations with the NISA Classified Bargaining Association. The district also received a significant one-time funds from the federal and state governments to support increased needs due to the pandemic, but most of these funds expire on September 30th, 2024. The budget message is designed to summarize important features, financial policies, and plan modifications to the 24-25 proposed budget. The total budget of $34,079,393 and the general fund budget of $25,557,000 or $557,043. So the planning for the budget, just so everybody kind of knows our process and all of these things, the budget is based on funding from a $10.2 billion state school fund for the 23-25 biennium. It includes funding for the $196.57. It also includes a $1.368 million allocation from the Student Investment Account, or the SIA. The SIA is part of the Student Success Act, SSA, that passed during the 2019 legislative session, funded by the state's corporate activity tax. It is also important to note that our budget reflects increased payroll costs due to the newly negotiated contracts and projected contracts across all employee groups. The adjustments reflect our ongoing commitment to the fair compensation and retention of our talented workforce and encouraging new prospective employees to consider NISA School District as their employer. Additionally, as the virtual school is projected to emerge as the largest school within our district, we have accounted for the additional revenue as well as increased costs associated with this operation. This underscores our dedication to meeting the diverse needs of our student population and embracing innovative educational models. So the next one, aligning for student success. For the second year, the 24-25 proposed budget includes integrated guidance for AILing for the IGA for student success as required by the ODE for school districts to receive funding from the SIA, HSS, High School Success, CTE, Perkins, Continuous Improvement Planning, and I know there's a lot of those abbreviations in there, but you guys will catch up to them. The district assembled an integrated guidance planning team in the fall of '22 and conducted a comprehensive needs assessment, including reviewing data on graduation dropout rates, the Smarter Balance assessment results, English language proficiency results, Oregon Accelerated Learning and Career Technical dashboards, chronic absenteeism, Oregon Student Health Survey responses, and community feedback from extensive outreach to students, families, staff, and community, which we are still a part of. The budget development process. So phase one, and this is just, I mean, you guys know this, we reviewed this, but just for the public, this is kind of how we got here. So phase one, the school board approved the budget calendar in June of '23, establishing a process for the 24-25 budget. The board also established a process to appoint vacant budget committee positions at the school board meeting in August of '23. The open positions were advertised across the district and filled by the board in December of '23. Phase three. Phase two, from October to December of '23, the district modified plans for use of ESSER II and 3 funding from the federal government passed down through the state of Oregon. A significant increase in the SIA funding allowed a number of positions to be allocated from ESSER to SIA. Funding of these positions in SIA will continue in the 24-25 school year. Phase 3, from January through April of '23, feedback from the school and district leadership informed some modifications to the general fund. The proposed budget also includes reductions made to align our current staffing to projected enrollment, maintaining staffing ratios to the best extent possible. The superintendent's cabinet reviewed the budget changes as well. Phase 4, beginning in April through May of '24, the final phase includes the delivery of the superintendent's budget message, over here, and the 24-25 proposed budget to the budget committee. The budget committee reviewed the proposed budget, received community testimony, and requested additional information. The budget committee will also see that the budget is balanced and aligns with student needs. Finally, the budget committee will approve the budget and tax levies and send the approved budget to the school board for approval. So you see, I've added this in there as really information to the public because I do want the public to look at this. It is posted online, and now they know how we got here. And it wasn't just kind of a dart. And Crystal and I were like, yep, let's put money there. But this is a process we go through, and it is a year. It takes all year to get to here where we're at today. So in conclusion, in closing, I want to thank the school board, administrators, staff, and community for the dedication and hard work in preparing the 24-25 budget. Many thanks to the budget committee for its thoughts and attention in reviewing the proposed budget and providing feedback as we plan for the 24-25 school year. I also want to especially thank Crystal Rideau, our business manager, and her staff for preparing the budget documents. This work, much like aligning the student success plan, provides guidance on spending priorities and the framework for future investments. We will continue to move forward and meet the challenges of educating our children in these challenging times. We'll continue to advocate at the state level for not only our students, but all Oregon students. We'll continue to look for ways to innovate and improve, and we'll continue to partner with our community to ensure that all students succeed. In essence, this budget is a testament to our community's steadfast commitment to becoming a destination district for staff, students, and families alike. By prioritizing investments in key areas, we are laying the foundation for continued growth, excellence, and inclusivity within our schools. Our goal is to increase student learning and opportunities for every child. I'm pleased to propose a budget with significant investments to meet the needs of our students. Thank you for consideration of the 24-25 proposed budget. Mayor Hopkins, Superintendent. Go over to Kristen.
Yep, thank you. I was talking to Ryan today, and this is my 7th budget I've made for NISA. I can't believe that's 7 already. Definitely not something that's easy, but, so Ryan's budget message, kind of a different message than we've heard in the past from previous superintendents. I like how he lined it all out so everyone understands the process, so that is very helpful. So what you have in front of you, if you turn the page, we're looking at the general fund. Our budget is broke out. We have general fund, and then we have special revenue accounts, we have our debt service accounts, and we have our facility improvement account in the 400s. So we're first going to just look at our general fund. Our general fund budget, we are proposing a $25.5 million general fund budget. Let me tell you how we got there. We looked at our current property taxes. The average increase is about 3% every year. So I'm proposing a 3% increase on taxes. Interest on investments. We get interest, we have a local government investment pool. I talk about it every month at the school board meetings. That's where we hold our money. It's our savings account, and that gets an interest, earns interest. That interest rate has just, I think it's above 5 at this point, 5%. So that's a big increase because the interest rates are going up there. Admissions, that revenue, that's our gate fees that we charge at our athletic events. That's where that money is. Left it alone. I talked to the athletic director. I don't think there's plans on increasing gate fees for next school year. Try to keep that low so our families can come support their students. Rentals, we do have, we've increased, if you don't know, we rent out the barber shop, and that's monthly income that we receive, and that rate will go up this year, so I've just adjusted for that. And then fees charged to grants. Every year the district applies for a indirect rate towards our federal title programs. That's a percentage that the state awards to us that we can apply to those grants. And so I'm expecting that to be about the same, $45,000 on our federal programs. Miscellaneous revenue, I'm not increasing that. Our biggest jump in revenue is our state school fund, and that is a reflection on the virtual school. Tons of estimates from the state and working with numbers. If you remember in our training from a couple weeks ago, our state school fund is based off of ADMW. Our estimated ADMW for 24-25 is 1,852.2. So that would bring our state school fund up to a little over 18.9 million. We're also on the second year of the biennium of the state, and so the state divides that. The first year, they allocate 49%, the second year it's 51%. So that's the increase in the state school fund. Yes.
1800?
1852.
1852.
Our current enrollment, Mr. Hawkins, if I'm correct, is 425 students in our virtual school.
That's correct.
And the 1852, that's weighted.
That's weighted, yes.
What's the number without any weight at all?
Are you talking ABMR?
Yes.
That is 1478.
1478?
Estimations on the common school fund, it wasn't going up or going down for next year, so I just left it at 168,000. Internal transfers, I am anticipating, as we go through this, you'll see how we're changing some programs. I'm anticipating about a $30,000 transfer from our early head start fund, that we're no longer going to continue with that program. But it does have an ending fund balance, so that'll be transferred to the general fund. So that's where that $30,000 is coming from. And then my best guess on our beginning fund balance, which we have to remember what our ending fund balance is on June 30th becomes our beginning fund balance on July 1st. Trying to get in every single expenditure that I can think of by June 30th. I think our ending fund balance, I'm confident it will be at $4.9 million. And that's where we get the $25.5 million. So that is the revenue for the general fund. Then the next page, on page 2, we start into the general fund expenditures, and we break it down by elementary school, middle school, high school. The way I budget, we budget based on positions, and I do it in the system. And so, and those positions can be split funded. They can be half middle school, half high school. They can be in the business office, or we could, split people up. So, so you'll see a proposed FTE right next to the proposed budget. So FTE, full-time employee, is what that stands for. And it can vary a little because we did do some variations of where we're paying people from. But overall, at the end of the budget, I'll go over how we get to 196.5 FTE, and that is down from the adopted budget this year of 201 FTE. So elementary, we really didn't adjust much. We did look at actuals of what we've spent up to, just last month, projected how much more we'll spend. And I just went through every category and just kind of adjusted what we're spending versus what we budgeted. And if we over budgeted, we brought it down. If we under budgeted, we brought it up. So every school has, of course, their payroll and their benefits, or the payroll costs, I should say, the health insurance, purchase services, that includes maintenance and repairs, out of district travel, site council, that is something that's contracted in our union, with our union. We have to budget that based on our contract. So I kept that the same. Telephone, postage. So we do have a jump in textbooks because we are doing another adoption next year. So that's the jump for that. And then the computer hardware, every year our IT, we're committed to providing a Chromebook to every single student at our district, and so we have a new upcoming class, we're going to replace Chromebooks, and so that did go up a little bit because of the expense of computers.
Crystal,
Yes?
have we done any kind of research of text versus Chromebooks as far as whether we're still buying textbooks, but we're trying to go everything digital. Is there a reason why we still buy textbooks and not just put them on Chromebooks, or is that a teacher preference thing?
So it's actually both. Looking at our science adoption, we just said most of the publishers are going mostly digital, but we do as teachers they like having some, it's hard to break with that tangible, like a textbook, where we're not obviously buying, one for every kid. We are buying more classroom sets that we reuse, but you'll see that it is more heavily favored to the virtual option because that's honestly where more resources are at. So,
If we turn to page 3, now we look at the middle school budget. Again, I've increased for the salaries according to what we've negotiated and agreed to with the certified union, and then our proposal for the classified union, and then the benefits, that just follows, it calculates it all in the system. And then as we go down from payroll and benefits, looking at really any big adjustments. I went over this with Mr. Cleaver. We did decrease their postage. We decreased it at their building because they're sending all their mail to our building, so we mail it, so my budget's gone up on postage and I knocked theirs down, so. You'll see again an increase in textbooks for the adoption next year. Kept non-consumables the same, increased just a little bit in computer hardware. And dues and fees, you know, we cover dues and fees for our administrators to be members of, COSA, thank you. And their rates are going up, so we gotta increase our budget for that. Then we also have a budget for middle school extracurricular. Now these are coaching positions. This is middle school science, SMILE. So there's an increase in that. So that's wages, and then the benefits increases as well. Spoke with Luke. We did not budget enough for officials this year. Those are going up every single game. I think baseball, we're paying close to 100, not over 100 every game. So he wanted to increase that so we have enough money. And then consumables, probably sure I just rounded from 8,900 to 9,000 on that one. So that's the middle school extracurricular budget. Then we move right down into the high school budget, adjusting those salaries and benefits. And we really looked at the high school budget this year. We decreased purchase services a lot. Let's see. We have a reimbursable program that we run with high school students that take dual college credits, that they can get reimbursed if they pass their class, turn in their official transcript, show me the receipt that they paid for the class. Well, we don't need 30,000. We could reduce that a little, so I reduced it to $20,000 for that program.
How hard do we push it?
That is an absolutely great question that I'm going to throw to Mr. Hawkins because I'm not in high school.
It's a great question, I think, to answer for you.
There you
So,
go.
yeah, that's what I'll.
I know I work very closely with office managers, but I'm not talking to the
I can
students.
tell you,
Yeah.
There you go.
like, my first two kids, I got so much money back from college, like, they both got, like, next to, like, didn't even talk about it, but there's just nobody pushing them off. Personally, well, I see on my kids, but, like, my other two, it was, maybe that's just because of who they were, but they were, the program was advertised and pushed, like, you can get this, you can get this.
We've been at 30,000 for a lot of years, because we were at 30,000 when we were there, but it seems like we don't ever spend that money,
Yeah.
which is why you reduced it. But man, a lot, I tell you, I mean, I'm gonna use Janae as an example, she had her master's in 4 years, because she had almost 2 years in high school. Man, I can't believe that.
They had some different programs back there too. There was some, ESD was running some, like my kids were doing it through 2 different schools. It was
And that might be
pushed.
the difference.
It was
Sure.
pushed through,
Okay.
There's just
and
not
there
as
was
many
classes, there
options.
was an actual class for like who you could take, there was, like you could do college recovery, college something or whatever. And they were actually taking that as a class as a senior and then just getting more of that.
But I think that's good for Mr. Hawkins to look into, and then I'll just watch it as we move forward. But I didn't want to keep it at 30 because we're not spending that money, so let's put it somewhere else.
Because I remember fighting instead of having it, because for a while, for about 4 years, that money went to the all ed. And we're saying, whoa, why, let's put the fence to the top of the hill instead of the bottom, right? So that, they brought it back. So,
I will tell you that we are making a commitment to giving our high school students a full schedule, and that's what we talked about a lot last night. So you will see, hopefully, with that commitment, is that money needs to go on there. So,
And then I'm going to tell you that $30,000 in new equipment, that needs to be on that next line, that computer hardware. That's for Chromebooks, not for computer hardware. So flip-flop those numbers. It won't change the budget, it just changes those 2 numbers. And then on page 6, we're at our high school extracurricular budget. So I worked with our athletic director a lot on this. His biggest thing was he's over budget on out-of-district travel, and he jokes with me every day, I can't make them not win. go to districts, we gotta travel, and I get that, but I give them crap about it all the time. And then, also, he's over budget in our officials, paying our officials this year, so we've really increased that. So that's where the increase in that budget is coming from. As I spoke earlier about early Head Start, we're looking to move away from that program, but introduce a 4-year-old classroom in this building and focus on 4-year-olds in our community. That's something we're working with the board and EST on a contract. It's going to cost $220,000, and so that is where, this is an addition to our general fund budget, that is where that expense comes from. I know that question got asked last night, so page 6 is in there. And then we move on.
Is that like, can you talk about that one at all? Is that like for any 4-year-old kids, or is this like how is that working?
So, yeah, so this classroom we would like to make it available for all 4-year-olds, and then the ESD, as you can see, it's a purchase service, so we're contracting out that service. They're going to go through and screen the kiddos, so we have the preschool promise, we have the elite classroom in this one, and so they kind of prioritize where they put those kiddos, but we are, with those 3 programs, want to get at least 50 or more kids in there, and so, but yeah, so we're going to just open up the doors, and then they're going to actually say, you know, what are those priority kiddos, and then and go from there, so.
And then so like, if there's more than 50 4-year-olds, like.
That's the great part
Are
about
you
it.
gonna deny people? I was like, is there like, or is there?
Yeah, there's only so many slots in there as well, but then that's something that the ESD is managing.
So we all mark about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, basically, to say, like, no, but and that's part of it is they're gonna recognize, because obviously they have some students that are the priority for service students, like, you know, IEP students that will be in the classroom out there, and so, but the ESD takes care of that.
Yeah. The only reason I bring it up is because we used to have like ones here, and then like they always had the kids that would come in to be like, what are the kids that are, I want to say normal, I don't know how to say it right. You had well, you had your kids who you were teaching, and then but then you had other kids to help.
It's a mentor, the peer
Right.
model.
But then
Yeah.
it's like always like.
And that will still continue outside of town, you know, where that Y is at, that classroom, and that will still occur there. But we're gonna actually use the same thing, it's called the lead pyramid model. We won't get into it, obviously, it's bigger in the budget, but yes. So all of those things.
So that's a new expenditure, but it's more than offset by the revenue side. That's all we need.
One more question for you, just so I don't have to do the math. What was the increase for the roughly for the staff? It all increased, was it like 3%, like did you guys have a percent when you did it?
For the contract we negotiated with,
Can you talk about that? Or
with the teachers, obviously we're going through it, and it varies because it's a different contract. We did a lot of things, so it's about a little over 12%. It's kind of the whole thing, and that's with PERS added in and all that, so.
So is this, back to your preschool 4-year-olds, is it 1 year only they can attend? I mean, based on, that's what kind of is down here at the Y, it's only 1 year you can attend, there's a gap, when you take 3 and 4-year-olds, you take a 3-year-old, then there was no place for a 4-year-old to go. So is that taking up this gap? or-
So our plan with the 4-year-olds is to get them kindergarten ready. And so we want those kids who will next year be in kindergarten, so.
So cut off date for birthday at 4 is what, you know, on your head?
Okay, yeah, but that is the intent of the program, is to get our kiddos ready for kindergarten.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on at the bottom of the page, our talented and gifted program. Mr. Harkins has been working really hard to get this program kind of back going again. I think it kind of fell off a little bit. And so we actually have a position on campus that now deals with tag and curriculum and a bunch of other things. And so as you see, like there's a 0.1 FTE, that's because that person, we've split them amongst lots of funds. But because they are doing this program, some of those wages should go into this budget. So that's why you see no wages in our current budget and wages in our next year's budget. Also with that, we put in some money to do some traveling for training, and then also consumables and textbooks and testing materials and things like that that will be needed to get that program back up and going.
That tag at all schools or high school only?
All
where we actually, Mark Redmond cut a contract or tore up a contract for us this year that we didn't need to pay for because of our increase in students. It's a very long process to get to what he was telling Ryan and I, but pretty much we're saving money and I don't need to budget that for next year, so we won't have that expense, so I brought that budget down. Increased out-of-district travel just for some more trainings to go to, consumables. You know, we needed more, I think we're at the max of spending that budget this year. And
Is Satan's postage go down for spend?
so our sped office, yes, I am, and it has, because our sped office manager is now submitting, things electronically, so we have been saving in postage there, yes, I went over that with them, so, yes. And then we move into our, alt ed budget, and so we have our wages there, benefits. I increased our purchase services because we did have more students in that program than I anticipated this year, and so we've overspent in purchase services, so I did made an adjustment for next year. However, they're not going to need as much money to set up that classroom because we really put a lot into it this year, so we don't need computers and things, so I reduced those two budgets, it's consumables and the computer.
Am I reading FTE, and I'm one behind you, so I'm really trying. Am I reading FTE wrong on tag at 17?
Okay. What page?
Seven.
Yeah, that's an issue, that's.
No,
No,
Yeah,
that's spend.
So
Yes.
Tag is.
tag is .1.
Point one?
And we're down.
Okay, but then, okay,
That's student visibility, that's the.
that's right, that's, okay, so, but when I have 2 point at all ed, right? Okay, all right.
Promise it all works out and then counts.
Well, I'm sure just the process in between is confusing for me. I'm slow, I'm sorry.
So on page 9, our career technical education budget, this is a contract that we have with the ESD, that they provide a staff member, I'm trying to think, I don't know, two,
Yes, nursing and STEM.
yes. So I worked with Matt McGee at ESD, hey, what is our contract gonna look like next year, so I adjusted the budget to what he said. Then we get into our account, this online school, this is also referred to as My Tech High. We have added a teacher, and Ryan, correct me if I mistake any of this. And then also, the amount of purchase service is, you're just gonna be like, wow, that's a lot, but that's because of the budget that we were in this year that got adopted. I was only anticipating 200 students to be in, and we have 425 students. And we do pay a percentage to My Tech High off of the number of students. And so I under budgeted this year, I'm adjusting for next year. And who knows where it'll go next year. It's my best estimated guess of how many students will be in that program.
So Crystal,
Yes.
when they do you have licensed administrator and then the supervisor, there's never a number by that. What, explain the difference between the, you got your teacher, then you got your admin, and then supervisor, what does that fall under? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where the person comes, and so that 1.0 or the supervisor that you have in there is, it is, that person is trying to assist the registry, like all of those things, and so that's where this person comes out of.
What is that, is that like another? So, I'm just trying to gab these all up. Does that make sense, my question?
Yep.
So that, you don't put a person by that could be one person, that could be 2 people, that could be that salary.
Yeah, that doesn't have an FTE.
Yeah, it should be, it's like a point, is that how it's in there?
I'm gonna go back.
It doesn't
and look
matter,
at that.
just
Yeah,
let it, like.
but that is, yeah, that's what that person is.
Well, there's a .50 difference in FTE. You combine it all, roughly so you added,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can look at that.
yeah, it's 0.5 difference.
yeah.
I need to put on my budget to look to see
Yeah.
what the position was, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's not a very good answer off the top of my head,
It's
so
okay.
I will.
I
will
remember
get
you
back to
telling me, you might not have an answer, but you'll give me one, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm totally good with all that.
And then I did decrease, computer hardware because, we didn't need 4,000 this year, and, but I think I kept it a little bit in just in case we need one computer for the new administrator. I'll do the program.
So, any of the textbooks that we have, how does that work with My Tech High? Obviously, it's digital, but you have the same issue as far as,
So it is, so if you think about it, so the My Tech High, as we call it, we subcontract them doing the actual instruction with the day-to-day. And so all of that is theirs, and they have the virtual programs, they have their subscription. So we pay them a lump sum, and then that's how they do it, like, like iReady and those things, they pay it out of that money that we have to purchase service. And so then what we do is we take care of the ELL and, all of the ones on top of the general instruction, and so that's where you'll see that, that's their money they handle that.
okay, understandable.
As we move into the English as a second language, or ESL, as most of us know, adjustment to salaries, benefits, and I made no other changes to their budget, except for salaries. But this is a new, at the very bottom of that page, it says migrant education. This is a new account that I've added to the budget after I've been through numerous meetings with a bunch of people. So when I was talking about the revenue, if you remember, I talked about that line that's called fees, what do I call it? Fees charged to grants, the indirect rate. Okay, so that fee that we get to charge, say Title I-C, goes to help cover things like my wages, because I help do their books, Ryan's overseeing some of it, just indirect expenses for that program. What we've learned through all of this is we should not be spending federal money on food ever, and so, but we like to do those kinds of things, or I'm trying to think of something else, copy paper, stuff like that. So what I learned is when we should put a line in our budget that is coded to migrant education, and so then I can correctly code expenditures for events that we have, like food, or if we need to buy decorations or something. But that expense is covered by that indirect rate. So it's coming from the title program, and the general fund is revenue, and I've put in a number for it to be expended out in the general fund. So that is something that's new to this budget this year. An exciting thing on page 11 under student safety, that used to be a rather large number that covered our SRO, and that has been removed from the general fund and is now paid for out of our Student Investment Act. So that number is zero for next year. And then counseling services, the counselors that were budgeted in the general fund have also been moved out of the general fund to the Student Investment Act. So that's why those wages are zero. And I did have a request for a little bit larger of a budget for consumables for counselors, so I did increase that a little bit.
So Crystal,
Yes.
I understand that the student, that SIA is, but so it's basically like, just so, I'm pretty sure I understand this, but it's like, you have your general fund, and then this is just that separate fund that the government passed, and as long as it's still working, that's where all this is gonna come from, and then if it doesn't, then we'll just go back to the general fund.
Yes, that's,
And then on page 12, we're looking at our curriculum development budget now. One of our employees has become a curriculum director /CAG / a bunch of other things. So that's where, they're focused on curriculum, they need to be paid out of, or to correctly show everyone, so that's why there's an increase of 23. That person is paid from multiple accounts. And I did increase the consumable budget, but I did decrease their needs increase. And then we have our classified staff development budget. Now, this is something that we also have to have in the budget based on our contract. And I know our contract's not done yet with the classified union, but I wanted to keep it in there because we made the budget for it, if that's what we're going to agree to. And then our library budget, adjusted wages and benefits, adjusted consumables a little bit, and the rest of it left the same. Oh, and I did reduce, you might ask, why am I reducing library books? Our school received a $10,000 grant this year to split amongst our 3 libraries, and we bought a lot of books. So, using that grant money for this year, I think we can take a year to not buy some books. That's why there's a decrease there. And then assessment and testing, some wages of a 0.10 and a 0.25, and then their benefits. And then I didn't budget any consumables this year, which we should have caught in the budget meeting last year because testing, you have to actually buy tests. So I put a line item in there, but we have not spent what we budgeted this year, that 10.5. We didn't spend any of that, so I took it out and I put it in consumables, so we have accurate budgeting to buy tests for actual testing, if that makes sense. Instructional staff development, I didn't change it, I kept it the same, no change from this year's budget to next year. And then we get to the Board of Education Services, this is our board account.
Can we reduce the classified staff development and instructional staff development?
So instructional is our instructional aides, our IAs, and classified could be a maintenance, could be food service, could be. So the board account, there are some changes in the board account. Number one, first off the bat, is purchase services. You're going to say that's a huge jump and wonder why. So the state has, so I'm preparing for the future. The state has passed legislation that says our board members could receive stipends monthly to be board members. However, that has been put on hold and it's now at the ethics committee, commission, and so it's not happening in this year's budget, but I'm anticipating it might get worked out by next year, and so if that's the case and that's the law, we need to have that in the budget, so I put that in the budget. Out of district travel, I kept that the same. I did cut their postage. They don't mail a lot. We're doing things by email. And our advertising, everything's online now. We do have some expense putting things in the newspaper, but we didn't need as much as we budgeted for this year. And that's the same for printing and binding. Going electronic is saving money some places. Our audit, I know I pulled that contract and adjusted it to exactly what she's going to charge us next year. So, and then legal services. I talked to Mr. Hawkins. We had a couple of years where we spent a lot of money. This year, we looked at it, what he's anticipating for next year, and that's where $25,000 came from. Doesn't work. Let's see.
Yeah, that's just, and I think a lot of those legal services have like whatever, that's why.
Yes.
Sorry, so that's why we're confident in reducing it down to what it was previously, so.
So then as we move into on page 15, Office of the Superintendent, so you're going to say, well, we only have one superintendent, so what the heck? But we have a superintendent budget in that, and we also have a compliance director, trying to think of the title, halftime budgeted in that.
So the .5 increase is that
Yes.
component.
Yes.
Is that person staying around for a while?
I am anticipating to see a person, but I don't know how much. Definitely not at the same capacity. Doing my best with what I'm told. I don't know.
It's a question for Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that they were working on the board chair.
Sweet.
And so we're working on that, but that's what we anticipate right now, is that that's reduced.
Yes. And then keeping everything the same, I did increase purchase services for the request of the superintendent. But I did reduce your new equipment, sorry. I know, you don't need another computer. You're good. Oh,
Why such a big increase in purchase services?
There are a lot of opportunities for professional development and those things that I would like to make available to the staff. And we looked at, just an example, like just the new Title IX legislation that came out, right? We didn't have anything in there, we were scrambling, and so really that gives us the opportunity to send more staff to more things to get better trained, and so that was the intent of that. So,
I got a question on this one. This is a bad question.
yeah.
It'll block my face when I say this one. Our last superintendent traveled a lot.
What?
Our last superintendent traveled, there's a lot of travel expense compared to 3 years ago. Is that still the plan, you think?
Yeah,
So the current
Trying to-
superintendent does not have that in their contract.
Yeah.
However,
Budgeted for it.
yeah.
well, he also attends COSA.
Yeah, no.
And he also, well, I can say you, everyone knows it's you. If we're running out of funds, say, just at the elementary, because I don't budget a lot for out-of-district travel,
Yeah,
but
that's right,
we
that's
need an administrator to go to a COSA training, it comes from, I take it from Ryan's budget, sorry. So, and then just tell him you can't travel, sorry. So, next is the office of the principal. These are, it's our administrators, and just that is just wages and benefits, there's no other expense. Other support services administration, this is, director of federal programs. And that is also just payroll and benefits. Then we come to, the business office. I budgeted this year, I was hoping for a half-time person, but I was fortunate enough to get a full-time person in our office for help. And so I've adjusted those wages on the correct line, it wasn't a classified position, it ended up being a confidential position, which was lovely, thank you. And so adjusted wages and benefits, and I believe dropped our telephone a little, and we're not gonna expend $7,500 this year. I dropped our postage as well. I did increase our consumables. And our dues and fees keep going up.
See that she's getting her computer still.
That's what I was trying to get to. I get her old one though. I mean, I got that one so far.
Then we jump into operations and maintenance, so this is our maintenance budget, so it has our maintenance staff. They're, also, we budget for summer temporary help, which are usually students that help cut the grass and keep up the lawns. So that's their payroll, their benefits, and then I worked with Jesse on this budget. I will tell you, there is, down the line, I've heard coming in October, a 17% increase in electricity for businesses, and that is why there is a huge jump in electricity. I am trying to make sure.
Just for businesses?
No,
No, it's still gonna be residential.
It's residential too, but what I read on the business side, it's 17%.
they're talking 26 is what Idaho Power is asking for on residents.
So,
Well, it affects farm. They're raising farmers, too.
Yeah.
Alright.
So I made that adjustment. I'm expecting gas to go up. I budgeted too much for water and sewer this year, so I'm adjusting that down. And talked to Jesse, our maintenance guy, about some projects next year. He has a 5-year plan, so we're just trying to support our vision with our facilities financially. That's the adjustments that I made to this budget. Also want to talk about our insurance. Case, I did the budget before I knew the projection, but our insurance is going up 12%. Which we can all kind of do a little cheer because last year it went up 17%.
Yeah. And when presenting that, they said, hey, good news, only 12% this year, which is, and, but it has been 17% for quite a while.
Yeah.
But, I mean, COVID on, it's been,
That's been consistent.
yeah.
It makes you cringe.
So this is, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And then the next two, maintenance, keeping of buildings, that's custodians, keeping of grounds, employees that work outside. That's just how it's budgeted out, so. The maintenance number of FTEs, that hasn't changed in that department, it's just an increase of their wages and their benefits. And then on the bottom part of page 19, this is our vehicle operation services. I guess I've always just called it transportation, but adjusted for wages for transportation. Let's see, I did adjust down on consumables. I've been doing pretty good budgeting for fuel, but I'm a little nervous this year, I don't know. It's been doing this lately, so, but you will see the increase in the.
You figure that one out, you'll make a phone call or two, please.
Yeah.
So my best guess, it's my best guess. And we'll just review it every month with the board when I get my financials, and if we have to adjust it, we need to adjust something. And then at the bottom of page 20 is our tech services, wages and benefits there. Increased, let's see, did I cut anything from them? Not really, I went over this with our IT supervisor, so.
Do they have any big projects coming?
You know, our,
New fiber or anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we just got new fiber, I think it was last year, last fall, and so right now we don't have any, other than the same Chromebook process every 4-year kind of rolls out, but other than that, we don't have any big projects.
And it is nice, like they've even built out a plan for the district, and so they have the different buildings, like teachers' computers, on a scheduled cycle now, which that, I don't think was a thing when I first started, so that helps me budget for what we need, because a teacher shouldn't be using a computer that's 5 years old. It's just not realistic. Not now. Jump down after our tech budget to our early retiree health insurance. Now, this is, Susie, you can probably help me explain this.
A long time ago, they passed that if we retired, they pay our insurance till we were old to Medicare. And there are a few of us that have grandfathered in.
Yes, so I have just adjusted that for next year. We still have one person that's.
Susie right there.
Well, there's,
No, you're not the only
No.
one. No,
But
she's not the only one.
I benefit from that.
Unfortunately, that number always goes down.
There's only one
Yeah.
more.
I can
Yeah.
say, there's not very
Yeah,
many, they
Well, because
kinda,
once they get to 65, they're Medicare.
right.
And there's one more person that has to retire and look at it. And he's the last one.
Yes. So it might jump when that individual decides to retire, but then I might lose one on the other side, becoming 65, so we'll just have to kind of see. Then also,
Double dipping half the time anyway.
if we look at our transfer of funds, so now this is money that's in our general fund budget that we're gonna transfer outside to our different other funds. And so this, in our current budget this year, it was over 2 million. And that's because we had a transfer to help finish, fund the high school roof and HVAC project. So that has come extremely far down for next year's budget because we don't have that expense anymore. But we do, the board has really told me we need to focus and have money for our facilities. And so I have budgeted a solid $500,000 to go towards our Fund 440, which is just focusing on our buildings and our facilities. And then a couple other little tiny transfers, one to Smile, to that account. I think that's it off the top of my head.
Is the HVAC system in the high school finished?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna put up like a marijuana fence so we can't see it all or nothing like that.
I was thinking about it, because every time I go by, it's like somebody needs to get a bulldog up there or something, so that's. Okay.
And then also our school board passed, forgive me if it was January or February, we had a lot of meetings, I don't remember, but they've updated our policy DBDB, which is all about our contingency and our reserve. And what they adopted was a minimum 5% in our contingency and a minimum 8% in a reserve. And so that is reflected on page 21 and 22, committing to the policy.
So on page 22, the proposed contingency fund increased because of the 5%. Is that correct? If you look at,
Which page are you on?
I'm on page 22. The total down here on the operating, on the, yeah,
So you're saying
operating
like
contingency.
last year went from 2.5 to,
And this year, 3 million.
yeah, so last year I just did a flat 10% to our contingency, and now per the new policy, the board wants to budget 13%. And then it's based off our revenue that comes in, so.
Okay, but that's what drove that number up.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So one's contingency and the other one,
A reserve,
reserve.
yes.
So we went all the way to 13% this year. So I know we talked about maybe needing to step it up, but we were able to get there.
I was able to get to 13. And then I know the board would like it to be more, but I think with just the vision and everything we've got going on, I was only comfortable.
It's a great step.
So.
Yeah, good job.
Yep.
And then because Mr. Bunker always wants his pie charts on the next page, I put them at the end,
Colors.
and they're colored.
Pie chart.
So and this is just general fund, so you can kind of see the breakout of the revenue we receive. And then the next page is the expenditures, so you can see how the revenue is coming in and then how the revenue, or how the expenditures are going out. And that's just general fund, that's not our whole entire budget.
That's why the teacher's one kind of comes down a little bit every year. That's basically because we're transferring a lot of those to these other funds, and so it's making that look like it. Because it used to be
I
like
will,
85%, but now it's down because of that.
and I will say that I think the district has done a really, really good job and a smart decision when we received that federal funding for COVID, not putting a ton of people's salaries in that, because now that it's gonna go away, we wouldn't be able to do it, like, we would be looking at it. So I do think that was really smart of the budget committee and the district to make that decision.
Crystal, I think I asked Ryan this, or Nick DeVolf, what he wants, and he gave me an answer, but I can't remember what it was. What percent of the virtual learning goes into the revenue part of this? What percent of the revenue is made up of the virtual learning?
Great question.
I mean, I think I asked most before, and
Yeah.
I can't remember what you told me.
I mean, that's hard for me to tell you, because our state
Right.
school fund is based off of ABMW.
ABMW.
I can tell you how many students are in the program, but I don't know of those students off the top of my head, how many have weights, you know?
Right.
Because we get weights for different
Because I
scenarios,
know,
so.
Ryan, you mentioned it in your budget message, how important that is. And I'm just trying to, in my mind, comprehend how stable is it and how much of the revenue chart does that contribute to?
How come we don't have a weighted number?
Because they don't adjust those, like, it's not a real-time adjustment on exactly what
Who's
that
they?
number is. So the state comes out, right, and Rose can talk pretty intelligently about this, is like, so what they do is they actually, I mean, in December, they finally weighted them, that was part of our budget, they weighted last year's, and so it's a continual process, and so exactly that. Do you know how many kids are actually there, which was 423 right now? And we can tell you, right, that what percentage of it goes to contract service, what percentage of that stays here with our hiring of a speech pathologist and IEP or a SPED teacher, and then kind of what we have left over and 5% for our administrative costs.
So the state knows the weight though, so who's getting the weighted dollars?
So they'll adjust those going forward. So, yeah.
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 And they only, the state will adjust the formula and recalculate it March.
I mean, I'm just
They
trying
just
to
did.
comprehend that
They
the
just
revenue
did.
side, we rely on this,
Mhm.
and obviously how much of that goes into
Yeah.
virtual.
And so, and you'll look at kind of the money from that virtual fund, it is not where the people that we have supporting that, right? So if that went away, right, and that halftime teacher, which is only virtual, like we have rolled that into 1.0 in high school, but it's not, it wouldn't, like the ESSER funds were, like in Salem, like last week, 400 people lost their jobs because that money revenue ended. It would not have the same effect here at the school district. The board has been very clear about keeping those things separate, and not maybe it's like, okay, we think we're gonna get about $1 million next year, so let's put some of that in elementary, let's put that. We've been very mindful of making sure that that is separate and encumbering the district on those costs at that point.
And I compliment the board on their forward thinking on the contingency and increasing that amount for answering questions that maybe we don't have a direct answer right now. But that contingency could really,
What is the percent that they take? 40?
60.
They take 60, we get 40.
Yeah.
So are we required to provide any weighted services?
Yes, all the weighted services we do. And so they actually take 60% of a 1.0, but so if a weighted service, like a kid counts as 1.5, they only get 60% of 1.0. And then so really.
We only get 40% of the 1.0 also.
We get 40% of the 1.0 and then 100% of the
Plus
1.1.
the-
Oh, well,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so
But
we
then
do
you also-
get weighted dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Okay,
you
well-
also have to use that money to.
Yes, I
Yeah.
asked the question the wrong way the first time, because we are getting weighted dollars.
We do
Yeah,
get
we do.
weighted, but I can't tell you what it is, because what I get from the state is our whole district. Like, I can tell you how much as a whole district,
Okay,
but
all
I
right,
can't
guess
tell
I
you
just
how
asked
many
the
of those
question the
come
wrong
through.
way.
Yeah, okay.
I got you.
I was wondering, why are we getting, okay.
Okay.
If we get the weighted dollars for the weighted services,
Yes.
then I don't really care.
Yeah, yeah, and
But
so we get 100%.
If we don't provide weighted services without weighted dollars, I'm gonna say, somebody's snafooing here.
No, we get 100% of the weighted dollars and
Okay,
40%.
all right, very good, I understand.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I asked it the wrong way.
That was a lot, and that was just the general fund, so now we move on to special revenue.
Can I ask one question
Yes.
on the general fund?
Of course.
And maybe you addressed it already. Page 9, the career technical education, you've got purchase services. Last year, 197,000, this year, 2.3 million. Maybe you explained it and I,
So that's
What's that
the 60% that we give to my tech packets. And so
Okay.
budget that we budgeted for this year that
so
got
it has
adopted,
increased enrollment
yes,
by that
I only
much.
budgeted for 200 students. It's double
Yeah, that's
that.
what I thought. I
Okay.
thought you only had 200 last year.
Yeah, and I did, so,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry, I
No,
think
you're
you
okay.
said that.
You're okay. And so when at Monday's meeting, you're gonna see if you look at purchase services, it's going to be over budget because I under budgeted, but
Okay.
as a whole, our whole budget, we're fine. Okay, so we move into special revenue funds. Our Fund 201 is Title 1A, that is just monies to our elementary school only. Our allocation for next year is a little over 500,000, and we're gonna have a little bit of carryover from this year. So that's why I'm budgeting 565. Title 1A pays for a teacher, a reading specialist, I believe, and 7 instructional assistants at the elementary school. So adjusted wages for that. And then I've worked with our federal programs director for his vision of what he sees next year and just budgeted according to his vision. We also pay for the after-school program, elementary after-school program out of Title 1A. We have STEM nights. You guys have probably seen that advertised in the community because expense comes from this program. McKinney Bento, thank you. So Rose is asking on page page 24, grant indirect charges. So that is that fee that we get to apply for from the state, and they give us a percentage that I get to apply to all of our title programs. So that is, and then, so that 15,200 will go back to the general fund and tie into that revenue number. If that makes sense.
Why did it go up so drastically?
I don't think I budgeted last year, or this year. Because like you can see here. See, another collection. Anyway, so that's Title 1A. Now Title, let's see. If we go to page 26, this is Title 2A. Title 2A is focused on professional development
Recurring item for the teachers.
for teachers, yes. So our allocation did go down a little bit for next year, so I just adjusted for that. And so, yeah, I put it, oh, you just heard it, I think I moved to the function. Let me go back to zeros.
Oh, is it, I wonder if it's under here instead of,
I think
you're
you're
right,
right.
yeah.
I think I
Parent
asked.
involvement. Looks like there's two.
Still, it's under function 3,000, so it's not good. But I can look to just make sure I'm following the numbers correctly, and if I need to move that number from community services to community development.
That's usually what it's all.
I'll look at that note. Okay, so Title II, I've adjusted it to our allocation for next year, our expected allocation, and really went off, I was working with the federal program director on this one as well, where he thinks we're going to spend and budget the money out for next year. So really I'm leaning on his guidance, as he's the one running the programs, which is very helpful and gives me an idea of what his thinking is for the future. On page 29 is Title III. Our allocation is going down on that one as well, just a little bit. It's remind me what Title III is. ELO, that's right. We have a conference that some of our teachers attend every year. And so it's budgeted for them to go to that conference. In addition, I budget licensed substitutes to cover their classrooms while they go to that conference. And then money to go to the conference, registration, consumables. That's it for Title III.
Would you say what's ELO?
ELO, yes.
So is that what we're like when we have that, that's a thing that teaches you to speak a different language.
Oh, is that a step, is that what that, that's what it does for that, I just.
We have paper.
Yeah, we have paper.
On page 33 is our Title IV-A grant, student support and academic enrichment. It is increasing next year a little bit. So we're putting our money towards purchase services, traveling to conferences, consumables, and then that indirect rate. And as we get to page 35, this is our Title I-C regular school year grant. There's an overall decrease statewide of Title I-C funding by 25%. I was on a webinar last Friday. It was so sad watching some of the faces of hearing a 25% decrease. I told Brian I budgeted $607,749 and our allocation will be $607,159, so I'm pretty close on. Yeah, that's what Ryan said. It's okay. I've reflected the changes that the state has, been communicating with us all this year. There's was a reduction of an FTE from that program, so that's reflected in this budget. And then just working with the federal programs director on where to put the money, how we're budgeting it.
So did they tell you you couldn't do administrator anymore? So there's nothing there for salaries?
There was a position in that program that was coded to that, and now that position doesn't exist, so I took it out. When we get to page 39, this is the Title I-C preschool grant. It also went down for next year. It looks like a really big decrease because this year I had to budget for so much carryover that we were spending this year. That carryover is not going to be there next year to spend. So I adjusted our budget to just be where our allocation will be next year. And that number only pays for one FTE, salary and benefits. And that follows the budget narrative that was submitted to the state this year and will be submitted next year. Is there any questions? Sorry, going fast. Okay, on page 41, this is our Ewing Sports Fund. Just for some history, we had a community member give the district some money after her passing. And so we don't put that in the general fund, we keep it in a special revenue fund, keep it separate, so we know where we're spending it. So I've just rolled the balance of what it will be June 30th to next year, and then budgeted out. So we could use it maybe to travel or buy some equipment. It is only supposed to be for sports, pay to play sports, for all of our students in any of our schools. So can't spend it on textbooks. Yeah.
So how come it increased?
We were given some, also donated property, given property, and the board sold that property.
So
So we sold a lot, and so that's why there's an increase.
and did people know about it? Because they just really didn't spend anything on it.
We have had numerous conversations about it, our athletic director knows about it, our administrators know about it. There's talk about a committee to be started, to, like, how to spend the money.
Can it start at like youth levels too, or it was like
She just gave it to me as a school district.
just
Just has to go
just
to
a school district?
students, it can't, needs to be what she wants, or what she expects.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I think we had some staffing changes, and so it's just getting people to understand and know everything, and I think it'll get utilized. On page 43, 1222 is House Bill 2444. This is a grant that one of our teachers applies for every year. See, over the years, it's kind of dipped up, gone down. We just received word from the state what the allocation will be next year, so I just adjusted that to what that is.
He's gonna be so sad.
And then on page 45, our CTE Career Pathways Program, this is programs at high school, FFA, business, nursing, and, not FFA, I'm sorry, ag. Sorry, let me say it right, ag, nursing, construction, and business.
This construction pad is the same one, isn't it?
Well, they're separate CTE programs,
I get it, it's the
but,
pathway that.
yeah.
And we received four different grants, and instead of budgeting them all four separately for more pages for everyone to read, put them all together, so.
And that's based on like how many kids are in it, right? Every year you get more
Yes.
kids multiply, you get more money every year.
Yeah, how many kids and,
What they do.
yeah, they get certifications, that's when it goes back to programming.
So are we thinking that students involved this year will be down?
I think, let me think about this, what our allocation was this year. I know I just adjusted it to what it was this year, I think. I budgeted a little too high in the budget this year. But then the state also came out, the funds for this year are supposed to be spent by 6/30, and they've extended that until June 30th of 2025. So in case our programs haven't, I know there are a few balances left on the grants, in case they don't spend that, we'll roll it to next year. Might have to adjust that, but. On page 47, this is tying back to the early Head Start program that we were talking about. I do believe they're gonna have a fund balance, on July 1, and so I put that number in there, and then, you'll see on page 48, there's fund modification, that's a transfer, that's that transfer back to the general fund. So that ties to the revenue page on page 1, of that $35,000. And then, other expenses. Page 49 is our preschool promise program. Let's see. That is not happening next year, and so that's a 0, but I left it in there so you can see the historical 3 years of that program, but that is no longer a thing. On page 51, this is our scholarship fund. So the board last night worked on board scholarships and recipients of that. So what we fund in this scholarship fund, we have Clarice Ford. She gave the school money. I think it was about $50,000 a few years ago. There's a committee that students can apply every single year and receive a $5,000 scholarship. So we're keeping that money, that's housed in here. Our food service program also puts on a scholarship. That's housed within this fund. Our $5,000 board scholarship every single year. And so there's a transfer in from the general fund because we give away a $5,000 or $5,000 of money. So that's that transfer on page 51 from the general fund, but that beginning fund balance, that's our Clarice Ford scholarship and anything from our food service scholarship that didn't get paid out before. So generally, we give out $5,000 for board, $5,000 for Clarice Ford, and then the food service scholarship is going to be out $4,000 or $400. So that's that other tuition that goes straight, gets paid to whatever university or college the student is going to. It does not get paid to the student. And then, so that'll reduce that fund to about $1,000 for any fund balance for then the 2026 budget.
So all of them, or just the food service one?
What?
Do all of them get paid straight to the college, or just the food service one?
No, every scholarship paid, I send to a university with a student.
So what if
or
the
with
kid
a-
signs up to go to college and then doesn't go?
So we've actually had that, they've sent money and then the
Did they
student
send it back?
didn't go, the college will send it back.
Yeah, because I knew that, I knew kids that got scholarships, and I'm like, that kid didn't go to college, I want that money.
And it happened last year because the board had $6,000 to give away instead of 5. Page 53, this is our grant of American Rescue Plan HCY number 2. This grant expires in, I believe, September 25? Oh geez. Maybe September 24th. We have a balance on it. And there is a plan to spend it, but I need to budget for it because I don't think we're going to spend it all by 6/30 of this year, so. And then that money will go away. We won't get that money again. On page 55, our IDEA Part B Section 611 grant, our allocation and our carryover from this year, anticipated about $324,000. That grant pays only for wages, pays for 6 instructional assistants on campus and their benefits. And then on page 57, we have our IDEA Part B Section 619. That services our students 5 and younger, and that's just a very small grant, and it has, the allocation hasn't changed over the years, so I just keep it at $2,500. And we just use it for consumables for purchase services. And then on page 59, this is our miscellaneous grants. This was my bag of the committee last year to add this into the budget. It's not specifically for any specific grant, it's a placeholder for when we do get those random grants that come in, that I already have it in the budget, and so it's just one less thing that the board has to approve. So we got a kindergarten roundup grant this year, and so I was able to just put it to that fund because it was already in the budget. Our library, $10,000 library grant we got this year, I was able to put to that. So it's a placeholder in the budget, but it's not a guarantee. And I only budgeted $50,000. I thought that was appropriate. As we move to page 61, we are at the Student Success Act or Student Investment Act. Our allocation will be 1.3 million this year. We are going to have a little bit of carryover at June 30. That's why that number is 1.5 million. But we know we have to spend the carryover by September. Our SIA funds, let me see, 12 FTEs, their wages and their benefits. We also have some money budgeted for our SEL curriculum, which Ryan, you're going to have to remind me of. Social emotional learning curriculum is funded from here. Our SRO is funded from here.
So, Crystal, you have to spend that by what date?
So we have to spend our carryover, which means the money we don't spend by June 30th, which I think is going to be 300,000-ish. We have to spend that by September. So that's why I'm putting it in this budget. But our allocation for next year is 1.3 million.
Okay, that's a good problem to have.
Yes. This grant also pays our, let's see, I'm trying to think what else, counselors.
Student success and community outreach.
There you go. Yes.
So like counselors would be like student service, your support services, probably?
They're actually just going to be under every building under license because they're a certified position. And in high school. It also covers, a few FTE teachers.
So like 12 teachers and 1 officer, basically, is that what that said?
I mean, I don't think they're all teachers though,
Or staff members or something?
but they're 12 FTE, they are 12 FTE.
12 FTE, and
12 FTE.
that's not including the.
And then an SRO,
An SRO.
curriculum for our social and emotional learning.
Hope that doesn't ever go away.
Health service.
Our nurse.
Our health services, is that nurse, health service coordinator or something? Yes. So,
Okay, on page 65, this is a new grant that we received this year. Safe School Culture Grant. It was only about $15,000 and we've only spent like 4,000 of it. So I'm budgeting with the remaining balance to be spent next year. And we have until June 30th of next year to spend that.
Programs cannot be used for that, out of curiosity, something.
So I know the focus right now has been on special education safety. I don't know what you want to call it.
equipment and training.
There you go.
Okay.
We've seen that
Football
money.
team out there.
Yes. On page 67 is our Title I migrant summer school. So our allocation for that has also gone down, so I've adjusted for that. So summer school, majority of it is wages and benefits. And then we've budgeted some for consumables and for summer school. And then also we will pay bus drivers for the bus routes out of that summer school. On page 70, this is a new grant to the state of 12, their early literacy grant. So I believe our allocation is $113,000, but we're going to have
obviously paying wages and payroll, but
And I
Wait,
think we
but
staff
it's-
it
But it's
based on.
stipend type position,
Okay,
not a
well,
salary
well,
position.
okay, I can understand if that's the reason, but
Oh,
it's not.
Okay, hold on a second, because I have Christie here.
Because
Christie,
stipend would
the
have to
question
be a different
is,
contract.
why do I not put in FTE for summer school?
They're not really part of our,
It's,
it's separate from our contracted
Okay,
staff. So, and it really depends on how many kids we have staffed. It's not like, there's been years we've employed a ton of staff. Because
Right.
we've had big numbers and then others we don't. So,
but you're basing the budget on a proposed number of students. So you should already know what the proposed number of employees are gonna be required for those proposed number of students.
but I don't think
Yeah,
we
but
knew how
if-
many students until
Yeah.
like a month or so ago. Because they're still doing signups right until.
Okay, I can
So-
understand that. When you proposed a budget based on some sort of number though, some sort of number of students.
So, and I think you'll notice that, and this is one of those processes that, in the whole budget, cleaning a lot of things up, is that prior to, there wasn't really a set number of how much we were spending per person. And so what we're saying now is, and so, right, I mean, it really was, is like, okay, we kind of have this much, it wasn't, like, everybody did make the same amount, and it was a variable in there, and so I think we just said we're gonna spend 100,000 in our staff, and I think Christie, I mean, we've standardized that scale of how much we're paying for this year, is that correct?
Yeah, the last 3 years it's been kind of all over the place. Now it's,
Okay, so
we'll
if,
basically know what their wages are based on what they make.
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry that I'm ignorant on this.
No.
You think I would know, but why, there's no mention, you can't call it a stipend because there's no
It's not
mention of
as
that
big
one
there,
way or the other
salaries.
in the contract. So how do you know how to pay via contract wise?
Well, and it's not part of the teacher contract
Okay, I
or
understand that.
classified.
But I think as far as the state is concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't influence or impact the equalization formula because it's a state grant, and it's basically what they're saying is, this doesn't have any influence on your weighted enrollment or anything. So you don't have to show us how many teachers you have or how many full-time equivalent you have.
Okay, all right,
It's a
well, that
state,
makes, that
it's a
makes,
state grant,
okay,
and it's outside of the formula.
okay, I understand,
So
that's
it
why,
doesn't-
there-
It
okay.
doesn't impact,
If that's the case, then I can understand why you don't have an FTE, because first of all, you're not required,
right,
right? I mean, second of all, there is no standardized number that you have to come up with, whether it's administrator or classified or whatever, it's, okay, well,
And
that
so
makes sense,
yeah,
I'm
we
just
have that
curious.
lump of money, and we say, where do you want to go with this?
Okay,
And so,
does that?
that is actually our federal programs director and the minor department coming up with those. And this year it's a little different with ODE, actually, do some of those.
Sometimes you guys hire an administrator to run.
Yes, we have two administrators that are in there. So, yeah.
I did ask Rose about putting FTE numbers in that, and how would that affect, like, state reporting? So, I'm gonna wait for her answer.
Well, it definitely could, but because state reporting is
Yeah.
affecting the general fund, this is a separate.
sure,
and,
okay.
and your
So-
auditors
So maybe
would
that's-
require you to do that if the state required it.
Yeah.
You would pass your audit
Right.
without that, but
We also
obviously,
don't, yeah, we don't report summer.
right.
He doesn't like the answer.
No, I.
No,
And I
it just
give you a
asks,
question.
it
No,
just
it's-
brings
it's
more
a good-
questions
it's a good
that,
question.
you know, when you said the state don't require, I'm thinking, holy smokes, why? I mean, somebody's gonna jump on that one before too long.
It's a grant.
Don't tell
I
them
But
understand.
it's a grant.
Tell them that.
There's a speaker right there, I just said something.
Are we on camera?
I don't know, back of my head is, that speaker bothers me more than the camera does. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know why, I just never caught that or saw that or, okay.
So on page 70 is our early literacy grant that is new to the state of Oregon this year. And we're gonna have a little bit of carryover, because our allocation next year is 113. So I've just added our allocation for next year and our carryover from this year. Our application was approved for what we submitted, and so I based our budget off of that application, which covers one FTE, some purchase service, and some textbooks. And hopefully that is a grant that continues for a long time, I know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be, it was one of the governors that's on the platform. I think that's what it was. That was one of the first things she did as governor, to put an emphasis to early literacy and early literacy.
Yes. On page 72 is our Measure 99, it's our outdoor school grant. It comes through OSU, people know it as the fifth grade field trip. I don't anticipate, I've heard nothing from OSU that the money's increasing a lot next year, so I just kept it the same. And that is an application that they have to fill out every single year. The funding is based on how many students attend. So,
A whole new state report for it.
I heard.
Report every student, every student counselor, and every teacher, yeah. Report them all.
On page 74 is our High School Success Fund, or AHSS. You've heard those, that throughout this process. This is money that is awarded to the high school. Our allocation and our carryover, I think it will be right at about $368,000. This money does fund FTE, 2.63 to be exact, at the high school level, and also budget for purchase services, for consumables, non-consumables. Yeah. I didn't hear a big decrease. I think it decreased a couple of years ago in funding, but I know
Last year,
it wasn't just last year.
but they combined it with the SIA, so it decreased that, but then the SIA went up. So they said, lost some here, but gained more here. So.
On page 76 is our PERS reserve fund. This has been sitting at $500,000 for a long time. I did not receive any feedback from the board this year or from the superintendent that one of our focus is to increase that account, so I just left it alone, kept that $500,000 in there. So no change to that account. Our SMILE program on page 78, this is a program through Oregon State as well. They do provide us with about $7,800 to run the program. That doesn't actually cover all of the costs to run the program. So there is a inter-fund transfer from the general fund to this program. But this is a program that is ran in elementary, middle school, and high school. The instructors are given an extra duty contract, so that's where the wages are coming from. And then they also have a consumable budget for each school, so they can do their science experiments. And then they do have a little bit of a travel budget because they get to go on challenges. So that is the SMILE budget. On page 81, this is our bus replacement fund. Ryan has had a 5, 7, 10-year bus replacement fund since I started that I have followed every single year. There's no plans in the budget to buy a bus next year. I'm not transferring money from the general fund, trying to build up that budget. We're just keeping it how it is. I believe we are, there's so many requirements of the buses now by 2025, and I believe we're there.
100%
No technicians, any buses, nothing, huh?
Yeah.
No electric buses.
Yeah. Well,
That's a first one.
I
Long
was had a
time.
conversation with those people.
We entertained the idea of the
Oh, we did,
bus,
yeah.
but.
Yeah, but
no.
you have to stop and charge and
Uh-huh.
hours to go with it.
Yeah, for hours and things like that, they gotta just run around the parking lot, so.
So, and then on page 83, now this is our student body funds. They've been increasing over the years, so I'm just estimating we're gonna have about $305,000 in student body funds, all three schools combined.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What is that?
So every school has student body funds, so like for the high school, for example, so their general student body where, as a parent, I have to pay for my daughter, like, they said $30 or something for her fees. So that goes into a student body account that does not go into general fund. We keep all that separate, that's student money.
So what do you do with it?
Or we spend it. They have homecoming, they have prom, they have, we have all these different accounts. We have football account, basketball account, baseball
Is this
account.
something they do with like, back in the day, like classes would put money
Have
in?
class accounts, yep.
So
So
it's-
all of that,
every class has
all of
a.
that, every class has an account,
This
and
class
so
has
that's
money,
all funded at this
1994 have
number.
any money?
Yes.
No?
I don't know.
Do you know if we have any money? Can you
What
ask?
year? I'll look.
94.
I'll look.
You don't know.
It's our 30-year reunion and people ask, did we have any money left? And I'm like, what money?
Yeah.
They're like, no, there should be money. I'm like, maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'll write a note by the
And it does stay in there too, and so
What?
I know that it doesn't just kind of get absorbed back in, it does.
No,
it
I have
does-
a-
It stays in.
I have a running class or
Running class
whatever.
list, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe you have money for a barbecue or something.
Maybe.
We're ice
I'll
control
check.
for me, I mean.
But yeah, so that's what that 305,000 is. If you combine all of those accounts amongst all the schools, that's the balance.
For making these. Because I
And
tried
then-
with a checking account, we just got it now today.
On page 85, this is our food service account. This has been kind of a hard one for me to budget going from a 5-day week to a 4-day week. Because we have to remember our food service, we are 100% free and reduced. And so the money we receive from the state is by the meals that we serve to our students. And if we're not in school and we're not serving meals, we're not getting money. So it's kind of been a little back and forth. And then food costs has been really, really crazy, but I've been working with food service to try to come up with a really good budget. And so basically we staff 11 people in our food service department. And their biggest expense besides payroll is food and then consumables, like the plates, the silverware, all that stuff. But I worked with the food service director and we did adjust like food this year. I think we over budgeted this year for food, so I made that adjustment. So overall, their budget went down, which looks a little weird, but I think I just had too much money in there for food expense. So I just made some changes. But feeling, pretty good when my kids are here. We do really well in food service. And then on page 88 is our debt service fund. Now what that means is we built a middle school and we took out a bond to build the middle school. And so this is an account just for that debt service payment that we owe on that building. And our payment next year, the required payment, it will be $459,000. 300,000 of that going to the principal and 159,000 of that going to interest. Nothing else comes out of that. Like, we cannot spend that money for anything else. It is just for that middle school.
What's the debt or the date to pay off on that?
30, shoot,
That's
who
okay.
this?
I just,
It was 20-year,
20-year, we're done with it, so it's gotta be.
was it a 20-year
30,
bond?
37, I think, 2036 or 37.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then on page 90, this is our,
Crystal.
Oh, yeah.
You go on, we've got 8,700 unappropriated,
yeah.
unappropriated money in there.
So that's just, so if you look on page 88, the revenue coming in, so I'm estimating we're gonna end this year with about hopefully $25,000, which will become our beginning fund balance. And then with the taxes that'll come in, and then the interest that we get with, we put that money in an LGIP, and that account pays interest. So I'm estimating that account is gonna be $467,000 worth of money next year. But we only will owe $459,000, so the remaining part I'm just putting in to become an ending fund balance to then in '26 become a beginning fund balance.
Okay.
And then on page 90, this is our facilities management fund. This is improvements of buildings and facilities on campus. And so as I talked about in the general fund, I did a transfer of $500,000 to this fund. Our board has made it very imperative that we have money for our facilities, and so on page 90, you'll see that $500,000 transfer. I do think we'll have a beginning fund balance of a little over $900,000 from this year. That's where that number comes from. And then I think we'll get about $75,000 on interest on that money. And then that only gets budgeted for improvements and capital outlay. And so then,
Was some of that money a grant a couple of years ago earlier, or is that all general fund dollars?
we've just been building it.
Okay.
So then, and I included page 92 and 93. 92 is the summary of the revenue. That's what, it says resources equals revenue. So, because I want you to see that 34,079,343.88. And then on the very last page, that's the summary of the expenditures. Those numbers have to match in order for it to be a balanced budget. So that's my proof. This is balanced. Revenue equals expenditures. Yay.
Can I go to a question that's, Ryan, can we go to a question that's an overall assessment rather than individual? You did a great job, by the way, so. Overall, does our, when you take in curriculum and teachers, et cetera, does our dual language program at the elementary cost more than what it would be? I mean, we've been at it for a while now. Does it cost more than what a regular, because of class size, just, if we were just standardized English only? Does it cost more based on number of students per classroom, the number of teachers? I mean, in a dual language classroom, you have to have basically 2 teachers, whether you have 40 students in that program or you have 50 students in that program, or 30, you still gotta have 2 teachers, correct? So overall, does it cost us more, or is it, or do we know those numbers?
So we don't know those numbers, and in the process, we're looking at dual language right now, but it varies, right? Some grade levels, actually, the dual language classrooms do have a higher student count.
Okay.
And so it depends on the grade and how many kids are in and out, and I think this year there's been a commitment to the fidelity of that program and keeping kids in there rather than transferring out. And so there's a lot to that question, and you would say return on investment, right? And say, if we're putting that money in there and we see a higher number of students that are achieving or doing better, I mean, so there's a lot to that question.
Ultimately, you would hope so.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you got it. I'm not even trying to get dollars that actually are, I'm gonna call them pie in the sky dollars. They're dollars, oh yeah, because our students are doing better, we get, it's worth it. Okay, I'm not even asking, I'm just after hard cost dollars. Because it appears to me, gotta say this carefully, it appears, because you're gonna know where it came from, it appears to me that our weighted students don't tend to be in that dual language program. Except for the maybe ESL time, right? Does that make sense? I'm not trying to categorize who's in there by no stretch of the imagination. But does it, I mean.
It depends on the grade level again, because we're really focusing on elementary, right? And
Correct.
in some, there are a higher number of, say, IEP or SPED students in the English only classrooms, and that's where it kind of depends. And so we look at our title, our 1A dollars that we put in, a lot of it is of setting those reading supports. And we do say we want to invest a little more in the dual language to help those students, because they do need a little more when they're acquiring a language.
Right.
And so, but what we say is that we kind of give that resource to the elementary, and they distribute those resources based on that. And so we don't say only this classroom, only this classroom, so they deploy resources based on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good point, thank you.
I forgot to mention the cover and just point out that this was artwork that one of our high school students
does the cover
Oh,
look the
yes.
way it does? I think there's a
So,
narrative around it. It's not
There is a
just
narrative behind this, it's because our future is bright, and so that's our new thing, sunglasses, and that's what we told him to run with, and that's what he came up with, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great spending.
This is
Great
it.
spending.
He's a senior. He's gonna be graduating here in a couple weeks.
Well, that was an excellent presentation, Michael. I know how many hours. go on that reading. Um,
Do you have questions? Are you good? Are you like, what the heck?
I appreciate it when the presentation went, but I didn't follow along pretty well. And, I mean, it's big numbers, and some of it I don't quite understand, and I don't, without having children or grandchildren in the school district, it's hard for me to be in tune with every single little aspect of what you guys are talking about. But knowing I've been through it before with my own kids, it's okay.
I know that's a lot of work.
I guess the only question I would have, because I went through it in high school, is I love vocational carpentry. And I did it my junior and senior year. And it was 3 hours a day during our junior year and 4 hours a day our senior year. And the Rotary Club in town actually sponsored us. They bought the lot and they bought the materials, and we just went in and we went for it. We learned in the classroom half the week and we were on the job site half the week. And it was a great experience. And so I'd love to see that continue or more funds in those programs for sure.
There is a lot of focus being put, that the whole CTE area, the state's really put a lot of focus to it.
Yeah, but the whole point is what they're trying to do, which I was glad to hear, like, they're trying to make sure that kids take advantage of all these things that we have. We have all this money, we have this stuff, and then kids just, like, they just don't do it. They get to be seniors and they're like, whatever, I don't want to go to school. So that they don't take it, but it's like it's like they're perfect for them to get something and do something, even if it's just for, future hobby or whatever, like
Yes,
this.
and it's a skill that as a homeowner you want to have. I mean, it's a skill they can never take away.
And a lot of those kids leave with welding certifications, which welders make good money.
They certainly do.
I would think that, I don't want to get in trouble with this one. I would think that, over the years,
Yes, he does.
teacher and administrators' emphasis has been not on the CTE programs. For the most part, over the years, they have been pushed for, your next step should be college. And that shift has taken a while, and it's not coming from students, it's coming from what students are being told. So it's taken a while to make that shift, to hear about the programs that you have. Most instructors don't see the value of that, if I want to put it that way. I said most, and I didn't mean all, I said most. So I think it's taken a long time to get that emphasis switched, or that, saying no. I mean, I've told the story of a kid who left school, his must have been March of his senior year. He was blasted by the school. That kid is one of the most successful mechanics you'll ever meet in your life. And school was not what he needed or wanted. And he was blasted by the school for doing the decision that ultimately was the best thing he could ever done. And that, I would make that exception to that particular kid, but there's others that have left school in spring. They shouldn't have left school, period, right? But, we gotta make sure that emphasis is not, the next step should be college, because it's not in every case.
And you'll see, actually, we put that down to 8th grade, like middle school. We look at that new science and saying, what are those aptitudes? Kind of like the ASVAB we used to take, right? But it is, and so there is an emphasis on post-high school, and that's career and college ready, with career reading first in college, and saying, hey, if this is your path, let's get you to more of a vocational, like carpentry, and making those pathways. And we always look for good kind of people to help staff those, because it's great to say, hey, let's build a house, but you gotta have somebody who's willing to teach and do those things. And so, but I will say there is an emphasis, and I've always emphasized, you'll see that in here, like those CTE opportunities, that it's not just about college, it is about career. And like life skills, I gotta see. By the way, I just thought of that for some reason when you told me that, so. That's where I gained that skill.
I want to thank everybody again, and the patrons, thank you for the, well, wait a minute, one of the patrons.
Well, they're up here.
No, you know, when you look at the complexities of a budget like this, and it gets more complex as we go along, you can understand why the patrons are saying, you know. So let's make sure that we, as a community, that we reach out and say, hey, if you have any questions, you know, we're here to try and answer those questions, and that's why we do the budget process, so make sure that the community understands that. I think you guys did a great job, I'll say that again, and we can approve this budget this evening, or we can wait.
Yes. We have another meeting scheduled next Tuesday, if needed, we'll say that.
Personally, I don't,
I move that we send this to the board for final approval.
do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this, to send it to the board for their review and approval. All in favor, aye? Any opposed? Good approve?
No, I wanted to just make mention that Mr. Hartley's, your term is up. You are done. And so the board will be putting out, some more papers.
Some kind of process I read about, you guys just changed.
But anyways.
She got her vote and then she came
No,
back.
stop firing me. What I'm trying to say
Time to do
is
something
there,
heavy now.
they'll put out the application in August. August is our policy, and I'm going to email you the paperwork.
So
Okay.
this your fourth?
That's what I was trying to do.
I'll be back.
I wasn't firing you.
Yeah, sure.
Are we adjourned?
Oh,
Newell, are we adjourned?
Oh, motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor, aye? Adjourn.